Well, German arms manufacturer Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann says it signed a contract with the country's armed forces to manufacture replacements for weapons sent to Ukraine. Berlin has sent 14 of the company's self-propelled PZH-2000 artillery systems, and it's now ordered 10 new ones with options on more. Well, this week, Germany also announced the arrival of 18 Leopard 2 tanks in Ukraine after facing criticism for the glacial speed of delivery on its military promises. This slowness was in part because donating tanks and artillery systems depletes Germany's capacity to defend itself. The open secret here is that the country's armed forces have faced chronic shortages for years, and sadly, the problems run much deeper than just a lack of kit.
The German Marder, this infantry fighting vehicle, has become symbolic for the German military and its problems, the equipment, for instance. The model has been around for about 50 years, with some updates. The Puma was supposed to replace the Marder years ago, but this more up-to-date high-tech weapon is still not ready for action. Acquiring helicopters, weapons and handheld digital communication systems is also a problem. The Bundeswehr is also short of munitions, grenades and missiles worth 20 billion euros.
There is no such thing as one central acquisition office. The Defence Ministry has a planning department, and the Bundeswehr has its own planning department, which includes members of the Army, Air Force and Navy. There are very many people involved in procuring what is needed.
And up until now, there was a tendency to go for top-of-the-range products. But that's changing, and planners say they will buy more standard-issue weaponry in future. The Bundeswehr's mission is one aspect which has shifted over the decades. During the Cold War, their NATO-funded weaponry was trained on one enemy, the Communist Eastern Bloc. But after the wall fell, there were no enemies in sight anymore. After German reunification, the Bundeswehr started sending troops on international peacekeeping and reconstruction missions in places like Afghanistan. Now the perceived threat has moved back closer home. They need to be able to respond quickly.
For example, this means that all units must be ready to be deployed, including all equipment necessary. This has not been the case for years. Right now, many divisions have to borrow equipment from other divisions.
Russia's attack on Ukraine led to a complete turnaround in German defence policy.
The 24th of February 2022 marked a historical turning point in the history of our continent.
The federal government plans to release an additional 100 billion euros in funding for Bundeswehr equipment. But experts say 3 times that sum is needed to adequately equip the German armed forces, and very little of that money has actually arrived.
This is because the German procurement process involves a lot of red tape. So it's not enough to just have money in the kitty. To spend it, they have to revamp the entire system.
So German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius has a long to-do list to bring the Bundeswehr up to speed.
Well, let's get more on this from Patrick Zensberg. He's a president of the German Armed Forces Reservist organisation. He's a colonel in the reserves and a former member of Parliament for Germany's opposition, Christian Democrats. So glad you could spare us the time. Welcome to DW. Our report there painted a rather bleak picture of Germany's armed forces and procurement system. Do you think it was fair?
I think in a way, yes, because 30 years you can say we shrink the army. Not just Germany did it, a lot of countries did it, because we thought we are surrounded by friends, we don't need this territorial defense anymore, we don't need this huge structure. So 30 years we reduced everything, and now we see territorial defense is important, we have to build up structures, and that needs time.
But it's not just the size of the armed forces, is it? It's one thing to reduce numbers, but we had the embarrassing incident just a month or so ago where we were testing this new armed vehicle and it just fell over. Quite often, German armed forces are found not to be up to the task.
It's true, but we don't have just these 16 or 18 infantry tanks. We had much more of this. Just this were not working because they're trained very hard, and that's normal that a tank also breaks when he's really trained very hard. So in the end, we have a good capability, but not in that size. And if you don't have the size, you have leaks in maintenance. So we have to build up structures. That needs money, that needs time, and it needs the mindset that you want to do it.
But this is Germany. Germany has the money. It's just over a year since the Chancellor announced his Zeitenwende, this historic turning point, reversing the country's previously cautious defence policy. He's promised 100 billion euros. So can you understand why that money doesn't seem to have reached, well, anywhere yet?
Yeah, it needs time, that's true. But we don't start with the simple things. You showed the Marder. There are several Marders we could use. I would use a Marder that's better than have no infantry tank. So I'm for everything that makes us stronger in the combat. And so I think we're discussing too much about issues and we're not doing the right things fast enough.
So, because this has been a consistent criticism of Germany, big promises, lots of spending. Well, where is it? Long delays in getting stuff to Ukraine. So what's the problem?
I think there's not a problem. We have 30% already in the contract.
There is a problem because everything comes late.
Yeah, but the word Zeitenwende is not because we are already 30 years talking about it. We were 30 years in a different direction, 180 degrees different direction. And now we say we're building up territorial defense again, we're building up the structures. We see now that we're not just on missions. We don't have our German military just for the missions. We now have to do territorial defense. We have to be able to support our partners much more, and our partners also see that the territorial defence is an important issue now. So that is a Zeitenwende.
We'll get to the territorial defence, but I just want to press you on this notion that everything's all right, we just need a bit of time, because in today's news, we heard that the Defence Ministry had to date signed a contract to replace mobile artillery units that were sent to Ukraine 9 months ago. So we send them to Ukraine, and then some bright spark in the Defence Ministry, we should replace those. All right, well, let's get a contract in. And it takes 9 months.
Yeah, and even not all 14 are replaced with new ones, just 10 in the first step. So you're right in that point, and you had it in your report before. We have administrative structures that make such issues taking such a long time. We want to be faster in this. I think it's possible. I think also the European law gives us many, many chances to be faster. And I already mentioned, that's a mindset issue. Do we want to solve our problems, or do we just see problems and not the solutions?
And so do you think there is a mindset problem then within the German defence establishment?
There is a mindset problem, because 30 years you've been just there to describe what's not possible, because militaries shrink for 30 years and each commander, each officer was just explaining what is possible, and most things are not possible.
Really?
And now we have to think big again, build up structures, make things possible. That's a total turnaround, and that's why the word Zeitenwende is also for the mindset important.
Well, I thank you for your frankness. I'm a little bit shocked,
yeah,
frankly.
But it's not just Germany. If you look at Britain, if you look at France, the same issues.
OK. So if, say, Russia attacked Germany in the middle of the night, as it did Ukraine, what sort of defence do you think the German armed forces could put up until the NATO cavalry arrived?
We could, and we had the same discussion many decades in the Cold War. There were the plans when the Warsaw Pact countries were coming west, where to stop them at the River Rhine. That was the issue. So, of course, we will try everything then to stop, but they first were in other countries. They would be in Poland, they would be somewhere else. And we now strengthening...
Have time to fix the tanks.
We have time. We have to support our allies there. And that's what we're doing right now. In the Baltic region, that's what we do, of course, in Romania and other countries. So we are concentrating on strengthening our eastern flank. Okay. With the NATO.
I'd like to play you a quick clip of the UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace speaking on Wednesday, wishing we could be more like Sweden.
I mean, part of that is a different cultural thing. Part of that is most of those countries have had conscription continual. Sweden, I think, paused it for 7 years, I think, and have reinvigorated it, and actually with some great success. And so I think conscription and reserves often go hand in hand because everyone's done it. So I definitely think we're all envious of how they use their reserves. And I would love to have a model like that.
So let's talk, Colonel Sensburg, then, as head of the Germany's Armed Forces Reservists organisation. Firstly, does Germany have enough reservists?
No, we have a little bit more than 30,000 who are doing their duty every year. So 30,000 is much too less.
And how many do you need?
Yeah, first, normally we have to talk about the active soldiers. We are something like 180,000, and we're not climbing up to a little bit more than 2,000. That's our target. I fear we're going down. And so normally the reserve is 3 times more than the active part. So we're far away from that. Our target is 100,000, 60,000 in the territorial defense, and 30,000 still doing their duty in all parts of the military.
And so has that mindset that you were talking about, has that applied itself yet to numbers? Is there an active policy of trying to recruit? No. No,
I think what we should really discuss is what do we need if we are really honest, if we want to really have deterrence, and that's what we're doing it. We want to have the resilience, that's why we need reserve, but we're not just doing it to have the resilience. We have to do it because we want to have deterrence that nobody will attack us. That's the target, no war. Right, so that's why you have to be real with the tanks, real with the soldiers. The soldiers have to be there and not just names on a file. So in the end, we are far away from a strong military that has a good deterrence for aggressors.
But this, again, forgive me, and thank you for coming in, but this sounds terrible. The politicians are saying, we have to do more, we have to do better, we have to be better. And it sounds from what you are saying like someone in there is going, yeah, but not yet, not quite, not now, I'm not really happy with this. There is just this gap.
But since February last year, before that, we were totally on a different track, 2011.
It takes time to turn this whole thing around.
Yes, and to discuss maybe mistakes. I was the only member of the Conservative Party in the German parliament who voted against stopping conscription. Everybody was convinced that we don't need conscription anymore because we're just surrounded by friends. No aggressor could reach us anymore. And everybody asked me who could be the aggressor. And everybody wanted me to say it's Russia, or could be Russia. And I always said, I don't know who in 10, 20, 30 years could be the aggressor, but I want to have a military that's strong enough to defend their own country.
Now, that would be quite an ask now politically, wouldn't it? Not just of the politicians, but of generations in Germany who've grown up in peace and want to put all that behind them.
Yeah, the 90s, they were the changing point. We had the Cold War time, and then 1989, 1990, the changing point, and then step by step, just being there, going into missions. Here is a peaceful Europe, surrounded by friends. Russia was invited to the table at the NATO. So in the end, there was no threat. So we shrink the military, and not just Germany did it. And now we focus that having the capability to defend the own country is the core issue of a military. And we gave it up. Not just Germany, we all gave it up.
Thank you so much for coming in and explaining that so clearly to us, Colonel Patrick Sensburg, President of the German Armed Forces Reservist Organisation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.